The topic of motivation is one that is highly individualistic. What motivates one person may not motivate another. Because of all the different factors that can go into motivation, this is also one of those topics where psychology has had to develop multiple different theories, which is the topic of today's video. Keep in mind, as I go through these different theories of motivation today, we don't have multiple theories because we're not in agreement. It also isn't a situation where because one theory may have been developed prior to another, that the newer theory replaced the older. This is one of those situations where we must have several different theories to get an understanding of the complex nature of motivation. There are 5 main theories of motivation that I'm going to talk about today. They are the instinct theory, drive reduction theory, optimum arousal theory, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and finally the self-determination theory. Let's start with the instinct theory of motivation, which is sometimes also referred to as the evolutionary approach. True to its name, this view holds that motivations, especially really strong motivations, stem from instincts. As a reminder, an instinct is a certain pattern of behavior that is not learned. They are inherently within us from birth. Many instincts deal with survival and overall well-being. So this theory explains why some people may be really strongly motivated to do something that is tied to a basic instinct. The way I like to explain it is that I may go for a run to get into shape or maybe to manage stress, but sometimes it can be a little hard for me to get motivated to do that. I'm going to be way more motivated to run if someone's chasing me though with a knife, because that goes into a basic instinct for self-survival. Drive theory is similar in that it holds that motivation stems from factors somewhat out of our control, but it replaces instincts as being the primary motivating factor with maintenance of homeostasis. If you remember from the video I did on biopsychology, homeostasis is sort of the balancing act that our body maintains. Your body doesn't like things too hot, too cold, too fast, or slow. It likes to maintain things in what I like to call the Goldilocks zone, where it's just right. A good example of how your body maintains homeostasis is if you're outside and it's really cold. Your body maintains its temperature by doing things like making you shiver, which helps you to warm up. You're not telling your body to shiver, and you're not really in control of it, but you are aware of it when it's happening. This theory specifically holds that the more our bodies go out of homeostasis, the more strongly we're motivated to engage in whatever behavior is needed to bring it back into balance. So for example, the longer I go without eating, the more motivated I am to want to eat. That motivation changes because I become more and more desperate to fulfill the basic function of my body to eat. See, I do finally eat, and I go a little overboard with it and absolutely gorge myself. Well, now I'm probably not going to be very motivated to eat for quite a while afterwards. Typically, the big behaviors that are influenced by drive theory are things like thirst, sleep, and hunger. Some people may also include sex drive in this category too, but strictly speaking, that isn't necessarily a biological need. Optimum arousal theory is similar to drive theory in that it tries to maintain something of a balancing act, but instead of talking about homeostasis, this theory is based on the idea that people have an optimum level of arousal that they try to maintain. Now, I know I just mentioned sex and now I'm talking about arousal, but this isn't arousal in the sense of sexual arousal, but rather the overall level of excitement or energy that a person needs. Think of it this way. If you get home after a long and stressful day, you're probably over-aroused. You had too much excitement and expended too much energy doing everything that you needed to do throughout the day. So now that you're home, you're probably going to do some things to relax and bring that level of excitement or arousal down. Maybe this involves listening to some music, taking a shower, or eating some dinner. You're motivated to bring your level of arousal from being overstimulated back towards your optimum level. Maybe you do this for too long and you start feeling a little bored. That overall level of arousal starts to go below your optimum level. Now you're understimulated, so you start doing things to bring up your level of excitement. Everyone is unique in terms of what their optimum level of arousal is and what they do to either bring it up or to bring it down. There's an interesting side note to the optimum arousal theory of motivation, and that's called the Yerkes-Dodson law. What it says is that our performance is best when we're under a moderate level of arousal rather than a low or high level. The idea here is that if you have a low level of arousal, you're not going to be too motivated to perform. If it's too high, then you may be easily distracted and find it difficult to pay attention, focus, concentrate. This is good to know, especially if you're a college student. If you really want to do your best with studying, maybe pick a time to do it when you're right in that sweet spot of not being too amped up, but also not being too bored either. Moving on, we have the hierarchy of needs. This is a really famous theory of motivation first proposed by a psychologist named Abraham Maslow. Abraham Maslow believed that motivation can be thought of as sort of a pyramid with different levels of focus. At the lower end, we have more fundamental needs that are required for survival, like food, water, shelter, and warmth. He called these physiological needs and believed that those areas must be met for a person to be motivated to start seeking higher level needs that weren't necessarily important for survival, but rather important for psychological well-being and social development. So the next step is safety and security. Then we have social relationships, like having friendships, a family, intimacy, romance. Then we move on to motivations for esteem. This includes self-worth, a sense of accomplishment, and self-confidence. Finally, the highest level of focus is what Maslow called self-actualization. In this level, Maslow believed that a person was motivated to engage in pursuits that were meant to just be done to achieve someone's fullest potential. I like to think of it as the stuff we really want to do, but keep putting off because we never seem to have the time to actually do it. So, for example, if I wanted to learn Italian because I think it's just a really cool language and I'd love to go to Italy someday, that would be something I'm doing for inner fulfillment. It isn't required for a job or a sense of safety or security, just something I want to do. Now, this is really an important part of Maslow's theory. If a lower level need isn't met, we aren't motivated or even able to really pursue interests that are higher than that level. So if I'm starting to learn Italian because everything else in my life is going well, then suddenly my house catches fire and burns down. Now I don't have shelter, which is a lower level need. My focus is now going to be mostly geared towards finding shelter, which is a basic physiological need, rather than learning Italian. The final theory I'm going to talk about is self-determination. This theory suggests that people can become self-determined when their needs for competence, connection, and autonomy are fulfilled. It places a lot of emphasis on intrinsic motivation over extrinsic. So basically, when a person is motivated to engage in a behavior because of a strong intrinsic reason, they want to be competent in that area and have a greater sense of connection with it, sort of a thirst for knowledge. Someone like this is probably going to be more motivated than someone who isn't. I see this a lot with college students. I've had some students that absolutely hate college. A lot of times they're there because their parents want them to go, or maybe all their friends went to college and they still wanted to hang out with them. Or maybe even it was just a sense of kind of like cultural pressure to go to college. So they go, but they just really aren't into it. They don't really like it. They don't really see the purpose of going. Not surprisingly, they don't typically do very well. They're not intrinsically motivated to be there and aren't looking for any kind of sense of purpose other than those extrinsic factors I mentioned. So it isn't like they're studying astronomy because they want to feel competent and knowledgeable about that subject. Rather, it's just a class they're being told they have to take. Now, of course, I'm not saying every person out there must go to college and must want to be there. Certainly, it isn't for everyone, and there are good options out there if it isn't for you. But if you're doing something purely because of pressure from someone else or because of a sense of obligation, you're going to be having a really long and difficult time in doing it, and you're going to struggle with motivation. If you're enjoying content like this, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and give me a like with the thumbs up icon below. This helps me to continue to expand these videos and provide amazing content to all of my viewers. Thanks for watching, everybody.